Epstein files are now being released slowly but surely. As people dig through them, we are learning more and more about the deep, seedy underbelly of these billionaires, these donors, these crooks, these criminals. And there's one question everybody has on their mind, and it's why aren't these people being arrested? Seriously. Donald Trump is the president. He said we should all move on from it, but it's not a satisfactory response. Now, his name appears quite a bit in many allegations, but even PBS is saying, guys, we don't actually have any evidence of Trump, Elon, or others in this circle engaging in trafficking or going to Epstein's island, unlike many other people. Bill Gates, who is accused of, I gotta be very light here because I know sometimes parents will watch these videos with their children around, but he acquired an infection, it is purported, and then gave it to his wife, and she divorced him. And look, I'm not here to try and cut Trump any slack on this. He has flubbed this whole Epstein thing from the get-go, calling it a hoax when it's clearly not. What we have learned is actually quite terrifying. There are videos of children, young girls, guys, this is dark stuff, in bathrooms. I'm not going to go into greater detail because you already know what we are learning. Comments about having young girls. And there were people who came out and tried to play this passive defense of Epstein, saying, well, actually, the girls that he had were all 16, 17. Yeah, that's not true. It's not true. And more information is coming out. Well, Bill Gates' ex-wife has responded to the allegations, but this is where things run deep. We can sit here and just have a laugh and say, it appears that Bill Gates acquired an infection, or we can take a look what the email actually was, and it does appear to have been a blackmail attempt. Basically, Epstein saying to Bill Gates, you work for me now. Otherwise, I'm going to go tell everybody that you got, if you know what I mean, from some ladies of the night. Now, we don't know for sure, but we are learning quite a bit about these billionaires as they rip each other to shreds, accusing each other of being the worst, most morally reprehensible thing you can be. But we don't know what's true. What I can say is, despite the accusations against Trump and Elon, Trump's done a pretty bad job, but Elon's done a very good job in calling out these individuals, saying we should get these files released. And many people have pointed to emails where Elon is saying, I want to come party with Epstein, but he never did. So I'm not here, again, to cut anybody some slack, and I do think that a lot of the allegations against Trump, even the stuff we see in these files, are largely BS. Listen, guys, I know people are going to get mad right off the bat, but these are allegations from 2025. Like, there are FBI crime tips about Trump doing really messed up stuff that came a few months ago. That is not core crux Epstein operations. That is in the heart of the political conflict we are facing right now. Some random criminal informant with no corroboration accused Trump of very serious wrongdoing. And there's not much to be said about claims like that other than it's hyper-partisan. I mean, they arrested the guy. It's hard for me to make an assessment, but I'm not trying to cut any slack here. Trump has been miserable on the release of these files, and he does appear in files going back to 2015, 16, and there's some nasty stuff. But in the end, again, even PBS says we are not seeing it at Trump the way we see it at other people. So let's start by listening to what Bill and Melinda Gates have to say, and then, oh boy, we're going to have to run through this implosion. The millionaires and the billionaires are ripping each other apart over this, being exposed for being dirty, disgusting individuals. And we've got Noam Chomsky, of all people. We've got Democrat donor Reid Hoffman. This is getting wild. But let me just start by saying this. The conspiracies were all true. Seriously. Makes you wonder about Pizzagate, right? Now, I do want to add one more into the mix before we jump into the beginning. All these journalists and corporate shills who are like, there's nothing to see here with Epstein. Take a look at the ABC story broken by James O'Keefe, where Amy Rohrbeck, I think her name was caught on a hot mic saying they had Epstein dead to rights, and it was covered up by the network. Where are these people now? Interesting, huh? And then there's another question. Why are these files actually getting released now? Key bono. Who benefits? Before we get started with everything, my friends, you got to go to timcast.com and join our Discord server. Community is our strength. If you believe in the work that we do, if you've got something to add, this is the network. At timcast.com, you join our Discord community, our official events and newsletter, $10 a month, and you are in the know with tens of thousands of people sharing information. I know many of you out there are talking about there's information, there's emails you've probably found, because we're talking about millions of emails. Get in the community, share what you find. This is how we win. And don't forget to pick up a nice bag of Cask Brew coffee, because nothing says calling out the billionaire elite pedos like drinking a nice delicious cup of coffee with your feet up while you hit send on that tweet with a new email you found circling that billionaire was lying. See how I'm trying to tie in my product to the story we're talking about? And it doesn't really work, but hey, buy our coffee. How about that? We got this story from The Independent, my friends. Again, smash the subscribe button, like, share this video with everybody, and follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, but sharing really does help. The Independent reports Melinda Gates speaks out after latest Epstein files release details allegations against Bill Gates. Melinda Gates said the case brings back memories of some very, very painful times in her marriage. Well, my friends, we've got the clip right here, and I hope you enjoy this. You know, part of me does still feel a little bad for Bill Gates, but, you know, how bad can you really feel for a guy who was partying with Epstein and had this happen to him? And what I mean is, like, guys, he's a bad guy, but here's his wife. Yeah, come on. You know, he deserves it. What can I say?
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, you know, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life.
Yes, but what about your ex-husband? Bill Gates says he regrets every minute he spent with Epstein and denies he got a disease. Here's the clip where Bill Gates is responding to the accusations.
Knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them to give money to global health. You know, in retrospect, that was a dead end, and I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
You've no doubt seen the allegations, including some of them from the last 24 to 48 hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
The problem is some of the things that he has sent and some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
I don't believe it for 2 seconds. I don't. This is a guy who's partying with Epstein, and everything we know about Epstein is true. Epstein's got, there's thousands of emails where he's talking about young girls, he's talking about parties, he's talking about inappropriate sexual things to other prominent personalities and podcasters, and you've got Reid Hoffman talking about partying, and I think it was Reid, it might have been someone else saying they're going to buy ice cream for the girls, and you got to try it. Guys, everybody knows what Epstein was doing. And this idea that Bill Gates is like, well, I regret going and partying with him, and these accusations that these things happen, it's just totally false. I don't buy it. And, the challenge is let me make sure I clear. There's people commenting, being like, "What do you feel bad about for?" Because like his wife is going on and being like, I guess what I feel bad is their marriage is destroyed, and that's why I'm like, you know what is sad? Imagine being with someone you're married, and then this is how it all comes crashing down. But again, I gotta walk that back, I guess, because it's hard to watch these clips and actually feel bad at all. I guess I more so feel bad about the state of being in this country, where this is what these people do. And I'm sad for the concept of marriage, because I can't imagine that. The only thing that matters to me right now in life is my family. Not the only, but like the principal thing. To see a marriage destroyed because of this scumbaggery. Here's a post where it gets interesting. Scottish says Epstein's draft email to Bill Gates. That's blackmail. He's shaking Gates down for $30 million to take quite about an STD Gates presumably had and pass to his wife. It looks like Epstein was on Gates' payroll. There was a similar email to Prince Andrew about a salary that wasn't being paid. It seems Epstein sold himself as a fixer for the rich and powerful, like Roy Cohn, without a law degree. These people went to Epstein to fix their problems, quiet antibiotics for an STD, no paper trail, or to get what they wanted, young women. Then he turned that info into leverage and used it to squeeze them. The bigger question, was Epstein working alone, or was he a foreign state asset? Was he working for Mossad? There's some circumstantial smoke there. Family links through his father-in-law, fake passports, unexplained wealth, and more. So here's the truth. This is an email to Epstein from Epstein. This is 7/18/2013. And he basically says that Bill Gates has abandoned him, that to protect his reputation, and et cetera, et cetera. He said, you did agree to send a letter of recommendation to a future employer, as for one, blah, blah, blah. And then when you get closer down, they start talking about the things that he may have done. And so when you come here, it says, to add insult to injury, you then subsequently, with tears in your eyes, implore me to please delete the emails regarding your STD. You'll request that I provide you antibiotics that you can surreptitiously give to Melinda, and the description of your You also made it clear to me that I am not to refer to redacted, as that is another topic that must remain between the two of us, in return for all of these requests, which I would have done without a second thought. Interesting. Now, I don't know what this actually is. He does mention, for $30 million in today's dollars, terms and conditions to be agreed. That's what I would have done. He's basically, here's what he says. In that regard, I suggest I buy you the house that you had your heart set on. And in addition to 5 years of severance, we'll buy you out of the investment contract we had agreed, 30 to 40% of a $100 million partnership for $30 million in today's dollars. I don't know that it's blackmail. And what that means is this might be Epstein legitimately complaining, saying, Bill, you promised me $100 million. You did these things. I helped you. That's how creepy and gross these people are. Well, check this out. Mario Knopfel says FBI got tipped in 2009 that Epstein's border ranch was routing trafficked kids to the East Coast. An email sent to FBI Director Mueller in 2009 claimed Epstein's Zorro Ranch sat close to the U.S.-Mexico border, where most trafficked children are routed prior to being dispersed to the East Coast, yet he wasn't arrested for trafficking until a decade later. Not only that, there are other emails that suggest there are dead bodies of trafficked girls on his property. This is crazy. This is crazy. Mediaites, this is where things start getting spicy, and it all starts breaking down. CBS News scraps 60 Minutes rerun after interviewee named in Epstein files. Researcher Peter Attia, after newly released documents, they say the segment first broadcast in October had been scheduled to air again. They're actually talking about firing. The dude's been named as a CBS News contributor just last week by Barry Weiss, but the interview, conducted by Nora O'Donnell, predates the formal relationship with the network. The segment is still available on the YouTube channel. His name appears roughly 1,700 times across the files. Many of the emails date from the mid-2010s after Epstein's 2008 conviction, but before his 2019 arrest. Some exchanges contain medical discussions, and others feature crude remarks. He addressed the message in a lengthy public apology posted to X, apologizing for emails to Epstein he described as embarrassing, tasteless, and indefensible. Well, my friends, it's not just him. We've got J.D. Vance torching gross and incestuous elites named in the Epstein dump, but defends Trump. Now, I gotta say this. It is not about cutting slack for Donald Trump. I say this now for the fourth time. It's that what we're getting from these files, that the bulk of what we're seeing posted by liberals saying this proves it, is that someone in 2024 and 5 or multiple persons were contacting Fed saying, here's things Trump has done. The problem is these are the same people who falsely convicted Trump of felony, what was it? I'm sorry. It was, what's the word I'm thinking of? He was fabricating business documents. They called it a felony. It was actually a misdemeanor and falsification of business records. There we go. These weren't felonies. So at the same time, they're trying to put Donald Trump in prison. They're arresting his lawyers. Someone calls in and says, Trump is friends with Epstein. I'm sorry, your credibility is shot in that regard. So I'm not trying to defend Trump over this. He's done a miserable job, and I have questions about why they're not prosecuting these people. But JD Vance is going after these elites. Bill Gates, Bill and Hillary Clinton, who are now going to testify. We want answers. We want answers. Let's roll. What do we got here? What do we got here? Who are the millionaires and the billionaires getting cooked by this? Jeffrey Epstein boasted about wild dinner with Mark Zuckerberg, Reid Hoffman in unsealed 2015 email. Ooh, they got Zuckerberg now. The New York Post says, Epstein once boasted about meeting Zuckerberg, Reid Hoffman, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel, and what he described as a wild dinner. An email released by the DOJ showed. Epstein replied, not sure yet. I had dinner with Zuckerberg. You know what the funniest thing about this? It says MU equals K. Someone made a funny meme where they were like, here's a picture of Epstein's keyboard and it's all equal signs because for some reason the dude put equal signs just everywhere. And I wonder if it was to prevent things from being searched, to be completely honest, because people will search for asterisks. If someone's going to break into your files and look for things, they're going to put MU asterisk K, MUS asterisk, Musk. They're going to try and find those emails. You do equal signs, maybe it covers it up. But wait, there's more. What I do want to add to that about Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and the meeting, Elon Musk has said they've only met in certain contexts. He never went to his island. And Epstein did go and party at other people's venues and places too. There was a statement made recently where they said it's not a crime to party with Epstein, and Democrats are claiming it is. And let's just stop, guys. I'm not playing a stupid game where somebody was at a party and Epstein was there, and they're like, oh, that proves it. There are legitimate questions about individuals who are trying to party with Epstein post sex trafficking conviction or, soliciting underage prostitutes is what he got convicted for. So if, like, in 2016, you're asking these questions, I wonder. Now, Epstein's response to that was that apparently he was trying to do an interview where his talking point was these were mischaracterized and he's paid his debt to society, and that's it. The only problem is he didn't, and it's still happening, and whether or not people knew that, that's not somebody you want to associate with. But I'm going to let y'all in on a secret. Power attracts. That's it. There are people that will say anything to earn the favor of people in power. They'll do it. And so when Epstein is a known diddler, there are people who are like, well, I don't care. He's worth $500 million and I want money. And so they overlook that for some reason. Like, and I don't mean that like for some vague reason. I'm saying there is a reason by which they are willing to overlook the disgusting nature of this man. Raw Story says, Dem donor targeted by Trump explains his Epstein connections. I very much regret. Well, Raw Story, a liberal publication, is very nice. A prominent Democratic donor late Tuesday night tried to contain the fallout when a recent Epstein file release revealed his connections to the deceased convicted child sex abuser. Donald Trump has repeatedly leveled allegations against LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, who has for years tried to distance himself from Epstein's legacy. Late last year, Trump even ordered a Justice Department investigation into Hoffman in connection to the exploits of the financier. Quote, I only knew Jeffrey Epstein because of a fundraising relationship with MIT, which I very much regret. In 2019, I told Axios the last meeting I had with him was in 2015, but I was mistaken. As according to calendar entries, I've become aware there were additional fundraising meetings in 2016 and 2018. These meetings were all coordinated by Joey Ito, then director of the MIT Media Lab. April 8th, 2016, meeting in Palo Alto. He lists a bunch of them. He further added, I have done multiple calendar searches, and if I find any other meetings, I will continue to share them. Hoffman then dropped a call to action for Trump himself. The victims of Epstein's abhorrent and vile actions deserve all the information they are seeking, and I continue to call on President Trump to deliver that for them, Hoffman wrote Tuesday. Now, it's entirely possible, again, I'm not trying to protect anybody, lock them all up for all I care, but it's entirely possible that people like Hoffman were partying with girls that were of age, right? We don't know for sure. And we know that Epstein was underage trafficking. He was convicted of it. And there are videos he's got of children it's messed up stuff. That's why I ain't cutting you any slack, Reid Hoffman. I'm trying to be reasonable because we want to understand the truth. The question is, were there people who went to party with Epstein thinking there's going to be adult female hookers, right? Still morally reprehensible, but substantially more legal. How many of these people knew exactly what was going on? Considering what Epstein had been charged with, I ain't cutting Reid Hoffman any slack on this. I'm saying, let's follow the evidence, dig through the emails, and see what we can find. Reid Hoffman claims he went to Epstein Island more than once to raise money for MIT. MIT has a $24.7 billion endowment. Makes sense, huh? There's more. Reid Hoffman visited Epstein's island multiple times, yet legacy media stays dead silent. Why? Because he's a top Democrat donor, and media is just the Democrat Party's propaganda wing. Elon Musk never visited the island, and yet they unleash nonstop smears against him. Here's an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Reid Hoffman saying, okay, come to Island Ranch, let's play. This is from Reid Hoffman who said, so here's the first email from JEE iTunes. I'm assuming it's Epstein. One of my friends, Reid Hoffman, has spent almost 100 on Dems. Let's say something re our membership. Reid Hoffman says, probably not, China visits, etc., possibly next year. And then he emailed Reid Hoffman, come to the island, let's play. Elon Musk says, target emoji. Here we go. Not Jerome Powell says, rest in peace. Reid Hoffman posts this from Epstein, to Epstein from Elon Musk. It says, the first email is from Epstein to Musk saying, how many people will you be for the heli to island? And Elon says, probably just Tallulah and me. What day night will be the wildest party on your island? Elon says, the big difference between you and me, Reid, is that you went and I did not. In fact, you went multiple times. First time was maybe a mistake. Second time, but not the second time you went. And Elon said he didn't actually go, and his intentions were not anything related to underage girls because he was with his wife. There's more. Mario Knopfel says, Reid Hoffman lied about extent of the relationship. Emails show contact through 2018. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman claimed he cut ties with Epstein in 2015 and only had a few interactions. The new DOJ dump says otherwise. Emails show visits to Epstein's island, his New Mexico ranch, and overnights at his Manhattan townhouse. Communications continued through 2016, 17, 18, including Skype calls and dinners. One 2019 calendar entry mentions a meeting with Hoffman. In 2014, Hoffman emailed Epstein about sending gifts, quote, ice cream for him to try, and if not, for the girls. He also sent something that may strike your funny bone for the island. In 2016, Epstein found Hoffman's passport in a gift bag and returned it. Excellent, Hoffman replied. Epstein even offered to help Hoffman buy a private plane. I will hold your hand along the way. Hoffman now sits on Microsoft's board and just published an op-ed calling Silicon Valley leaders cowards for not speaking out against Trump. The guy who lied about his Epstein ties for years is lecturing others about moral courage. Indeed, my friends. So here's where it gets interesting. Bill Gates says it was an email to himself. It never happened. It's fake. Yet a guy on your board. Yes, spare me. But guys, just wait. There's more. Elon Musk's response in that initial about him being there with his wife, he says more. And he says, as the email shows, I obviously didn't anticipate anything actually shady as I was bringing my wife at the time, Tallulah. Nonetheless, unlike you, I came to my senses and declined to go. Epstein tried to get me to go to the island so many times that eventually I just blocked him. Interesting. Well, my friends, here's where it gets real fun. Newly released files shed new light on Chomsky and Epstein relationship. That's right, Noam Chomsky. Oh my God, you guys, this is the nastiest. This is where things get really messed up. The close friendship that Noam Chomsky maintained with Jeffrey Epstein continued being detailed extensively among millions of investigative records pertaining to the late convicted sex offender recently released by the U.S. Justice Department, including Chomsky, quote, fantasizing about the Caribbean island. Dude, the conspiracies were all true. And they lied and they tried to cover it up. They were all true. There were people coming out saying that, I mentioned this, it was 16 and 17-year-olds. No, it was children. It was. And the more we learn about it, the more we learn about what these people are doing, the more we have questions about who in the media covered it up and why were they trying to cover it up? Why were they spreading lies? Well, the pitch I gave way back when, like a few years ago, is that There are agents and there's intelligence agencies, and they work for the boss. And the boss cuts a deal. And he goes to the powerful billionaires and says, you work for me now, otherwise the Epstein files get released. Donald Trump doesn't want the files released for a variety of reasons. His name appears in them some 5,300 times with insane accusations going back to like 2013 or earlier. Now, I do think a lot of these lack credibility. Trump, much like Elon, does appear in this, but I don't think Trump was going to the island or doing anything like Reid Hoffman was doing. That being said, why is Trump not arresting these people, and why is he covering this up? There's no credit to be given to this man. Donald Trump should be arresting these people. And the argument then is, as I've made it, is that in these files we're going to find powerful individuals, and Trump wants leverage over them. He wants the blackmail that Epstein had. Well, that's wielding the One Ring. It's a power you can't control. It'll blow up in your face, and now we're seeing it. The questions I ultimately have is, why are they actually releasing this stuff? Maybe it's one big distraction. I'll put it like this. Here's a theory for you. The real Epstein documents, the truly incriminating evidence, videos or otherwise, they claim they don't have, probably got destroyed a long time ago to cover up for these billionaires. And now they're putting these files out, which are damning but not actionable. What we heard from, I think this was Dan Bongino, he said, you've got, it might have been Cash, but you've got videos, you've got photos, but none of it is actually definitive proof of trafficking on the parts of these individuals. Epstein and Ghislaine, yes, but these other individuals. My theory is they're putting this out to be like, yes, it's all true, but the real damning stuff, evidence of actual crimes being committed in videos, were destroyed a long time ago. The New York Times says the DOJ looked into sexual misconduct allegations against Trump in connection with Epstein, but did not find credible information to merit further investigation, Todd Blanche, the deputy AG, said on Sunday. His comments, which made on CNN State of the Union, came less than 48 hours after the Trump admin released about 3 million pages of documents collected by the DOJ as part of its years-long investigation into Epstein, who died in 2019. They say the files are peppered with references to Trump, who had been a close friend of Epstein's until the early 2000s. While Mr. Trump has repeatedly downplayed the relationship, the two men bonded over the pursuit of young women. Mr. Trump has denied any wrongdoing in connection to Mr. Epstein. Guys, I'm going to be honest. If you came to me and said that Donald Trump was going to the island and doing stuff with underage girls, I'm not really going to believe it. Sorry. There are these weird accusations about Trump going in like dressing rooms and doing awful things to little girls. And I'm like, a lot of these allegations come in the past few years while we're in a hyper-partisan battle. But if you go back to the early 2000s and you listen to what Donald Trump says and who he was, man, if you come to me and tell me that Epstein procured hookers for Trump, I'd be like, it's believable. Listen, I think Trump is doing generally good things as president. I think his family are all very good people. His kids are all very great, straightforward individuals. Trump, he's got his vices and he's got his failings. I don't look at Trump and think like he's a beacon of moral virtue. I'm like, we're getting some net positives in government, but maybe we can do better. The point is, of course, Trump makes mistakes, does bad things, and is a far from perfect individual. And I've said that the whole time. Even before I voted for him, I said, this is a guy who's got serious moral failings. But I don't believe the worst of it. If you come to me and say Trump is a generally unethical guy who's had multiple wives, I'll be like, well, it's hard to argue against when he talks about grabbing women by the hoo-hoo because they let you do it. But then when you take a look at these more insane claims, I'm like, this is sci-fi Trump derangement level stuff in these files. That being said, from the Hill, Trump says countries should move on from Epstein files after latest release. No, we shouldn't. We should criminally charge the people involved and go after them. And when we're looking at the bare minimum, if the evidence has truly been destroyed and we can't get some of these big Democrat donors or other individuals, they should be fired from their jobs and ostracized and shunned. Okay? Because this stuff, I think, is circumstantial enough. But wait, here's where it really gets bad. An email from Redacted. Why? To Jeffrey Epstein. Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty. Now, I'm not going to sit here. I'm going to tell you this. I approach this. I tried to from a legal perspective. If you go to a court, they're going to be like, we don't know that means underage. I think any sane and rational person and any jury is going to be like, we know what Epstein was doing. And this is 2014, and they are redacting the name of an individual who apparently was either with a legitimate trafficked woman or at worst, a child. Why is that name redacted? Why did the DOJ do it? See, that's where Trump does not get through on this one, and people need to bring this up because there is literally no excuse. You can scream and cry that Trump is doing great on immigration, great on USAID, great on foreign policy, and then you come to this and say, and his administration is also redacting the names of what appears to be pedophiles. Why? To wield the one ring, perhaps? That's not power I think deserves to exist. A country that would utilize pedophiles at the highest level for power is a country that will eventually collapse. And we are seeing the fracturing happen now because you can't tell the American people you will cover this up and expect them to grant you legitimacy. So is the purpose just to prove you are an illegitimate government who will protect pedophiles? Apparently that's the case. The fascinating thing is that in the 2010s, when prominent conspiracy theorists were saying that our government was being run by or there are powerful people who were pedophiles running things, and they were told they were liars in the press, we now know it is true. We've got this here. This is a federal FBI investigation where a criminal informant said Donald Trump was. Can we actually look at the? How do I actually view post? There we go. This is that he was an informant compromised by Mossad. Now here's the challenge with this. As I've mentioned with all of these other things, these are post-Trump conflict CIs. After Epstein's already dead, accusations are made about Trump. And the challenge with this is I got no problem saying, look at the document, read it, pause the video, all of that stuff, believe what you want to believe. The challenge is we know they tried locking him up. They impeached him. They accused him of Russiagate. They made up so much stuff. It makes it impossible to understand what is actually going on. But I'm not sitting here to just say Trump's innocent, okay? I think he's covering this stuff up, and I got problems. I even got a post here from old Krasenstein. He says, Epstein files clearly show that the Southern District of Florida offered a prosecution agreement to Epstein and 4 co-conspirators, as well as other potential co-conspirators, but the Trump DOJ redacted their names. Could it be because Donald Trump was one of them? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I mean, it's a possibility, I guess, but I don't think so. Regardless, where we can start reasonably, Mr. Krasenstein, if you actually want to move forward on this one, coming out and just saying Trump did it is not going to earn you any favors from anybody on the right. We can say this. We all agree these should not be redacted, should be unredacted, and we want these people to face accountability in the public and in the courts. So where I think the left and right can come together on this one is not to just say Trump did it or Reid Hoffman did it. Certainly there's articles, by all means, believe what you want to believe about each of these individuals. How about we unredact the names? We all agree on that one, right? I wish. And then, of course, Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon appears in these emails, photos, videos. He interviewed Epstein and there are questions about his connection and gifts he may have received. Now, they do go on to say no direct evidence of Trump, Musk, or Lutnick participating in trafficking or abuse have emerged from the files, and inclusion in the documents does not directly prove any sort of illegal activity. Some files detail friendly texts between Bannon and Epstein, including one in 2019 where Epstein asks Bannon if he received an Apple Watch he sent him for Christmas. A few days later, invites Bannon to come join him in New York. And he said, in Texas, building a wall. Bannon appears to have been well connected with Epstein, but it doesn't look like in the same way that Reid Hoffman was. I'm going to stop. Guys, I don't care about partisan anything. What I care about is getting the information out, unredacting this, and those who are criminals being exposed. Let's accept that as the initial premise. I think that's a fair place to start. Now we can laugh. I think it's fair because, well, you know, regular people don't get to live the lives of luxury and vice and lasciviousness. So we can point at these evil men and say, you thought you untouchable. No. Well, for now, it looks like Trump is certainly making sure some of them are. We'll see how this plays out as more files are presented, more emails are uncovered. This story is far from done. Smash the like button, share the show, stay tuned. More is coming up throughout the day, and we'll see you all in the next segment.